But all I was thinking about was Sweden Rock, Grass Pop, back in Sonosphere, all the, because there was like a whole summer of the biggest things. Um, so I got a flight ticket sent to me. Oh yeah, well I went over and I met Eddie actually, and then I heard all these stories about him and Lemmy and stuff, and got like a real insight. And I'm sitting there speaking to Fast Eddie Clark, in Steve Strange's living room, and going, what? In 1979 or 1980 or whatever, I was watching these guys, playing in Maysfield Leisure Centre, and someone hanging from the bomber, I'm not going to say who it is, or who it was, and and Motorhead were my idols. Fastway were a totally different, kettle of fish than Motorhead, much more melodic sort of thing. But so as I say, I went over, and Eddie turned around to Steve and said, because Margaret went with me at that stage, and said, take Margaret to the Ivy, the famous restaurant in London, which Steve did, and we went with John McManus, who ended up playing bass in Fastway as well. And Steve Strange was drumming, by the way, in Fastway, so this was like a whole, it was like a labour of love for him sort of thing. So he loved me at the time, wanted me singing. He had a Mama's Boy, Mama's Boy's bass player. He had a Fast Eddie who he loved on guitar, and then he was getting the drum, and so the following week I went over to London anyway for rehearsals. First day was great, because everybody was, or Eddie was sort of saying, there's no pressure today, we're just blowing off the cobwebs and stuff. And I was thinking, well, that's good, because, I'm just sort of bringing myself in. And I didn't even think, because I was hearing mistakes all around the room, and I was going, you guys better get your act together. Because I'd been practicing with Storm Zone, and Glenn Gray was the drummer in the band at the time. Big Steve, Doc, Graham, Keith, and we were quite regimental. We were rehearsing, and everything sounded great. And then I was with these guys, in London, these legends, and things weren't. In London, these legends, and things weren't exactly coming together, sort of right away. And then so following week went over, and Eddie, I always remember Eddie turning around saying, now it's coming together. And I go, brilliant, this is great. I didn't even need my word sheets or anything anymore. I was just throwing them aside and thinking. And then Josh came, who was the X-Ray touring sort of main assistant to Steve sort of thing. And I'm sitting down in this room with Fast Eddie and John and whatever, taking a break, and Josh is going down my rider, saying, and now what would you like for Sweden Rock? And I'm going, what are my options? Well, you can have red wine, white wine, chicken, or are you vegan, or what? And I'm going, what? And I do down this list and tick all these lovely things, that were going to be waiting backstage for me. I was almost sort of going, don't, no red M&Ms. So everything was like really, really great. And we went out even that night. And I remember Steve actually being overjoyed in the taxi on the way back to the hotel and stuff, and me saying, what he said, I just got this big gig, because obviously he was like a amazingly famous agent, and I said, what was it, like it's Foo Fighters, because he was looking after Snow Patrol and all, at the time as well, and Coldplay and whatever. He says, no, he says, I got Thomas the Tank Engine on ice. and I loved that because I mean it was business, you know, just because, and you know it was a very successful tour, which he got his percentage from for being the agent, putting all the shows on, you know. But that showed you the makeup of the guy. But then I went home next day, and in the following week, actually, what a wonderful weekend the following weekend was, because it was my daughter Lindsay's, boyfriend's, Peter's birthday. So, unbeknownst to me, Margaret had contacted Steve, and because Steve represented Robbie Williams as well, Margaret had said there's the Milton Keynes Bowl gig was coming up. Robbie Williams was headlining, and Margaret had contacted Steve to see if he could get tickets for Lindsay and Peter to go, because he was such a Robbie Williams fan. And Steve says, "Yeah, I'll organise that, no problem. I'll go myself, but you and John, Harv, you know, come over too." So Lindsay, Peter, myself, and Margaret went over, stayed in a hotel beside Steve's apartments, and we went and had our lunch and stuff, and it got to the stage where it was time to meet Steve to go to the gig. So he rang, but we had our mobiles and stuff in. Where are you? Just round the corner. Come round to my place. Where is it? And I was just round the corner. And there was a black taxi, and Steve was in the back of the black taxi. And he says, "Get in." And I went, "Where are we going first?" And he went, "No, we're going to the gig. We're going to Milton Keynes." And I'm going, "But we're at Marylebone Station here, and you know, in in the west end of London." And seriously, the guy, I can't remember his name, but he was a lovely guy, and he had to drive us from West London to Milton Keynes. And I know that Milton Keynes is technically a part of, you know, the outskirts of London, but like, you're talking about an hour and a half, you know, in a black taxi, you know, through all the traffic and stuff. And then we got to the Robbie Williams gig, and Peter and Lindsay went off to see. I wasn't really that worried about seeing Robbie Williams, so I was hanging backstage with Steve, and getting the the vodka and oranges and whatever sort of thing. And I saw Steve over talking to the taxi driver just before we went off to sort of get a couple of drinks and then see a bit of the show. And then whenever I came back from seeing a bit of the show with Margaret, the taxi mom was still there, you know, and I was saying to Steve, "What's that all about?" He says, "Oh no, he's waiting there until, you know, until